Ashley?
Here.
Jane?
Here.
Bren?
Here.
Jeannie?
Here.
And our students, Musab and Dylan?
Here.
All right, thank you very much. Notice of meeting?
The meeting was properly noticed.
Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, please stand with me to do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is our Spotlight on Learning with Horizon.
Come on down, Mr. Gull.
It'll take us a minute to assemble everyone. We brought about half the school with us tonight. So. It's kind of, yeah. So if you guys remember back to the our first spotlight at the beginning of the year, we talked a lot about win time, something that we were focused on at the end of the year last year, spent a lot of time working on it this summer. That's that time in every student's, it's an instructional block in every student's day, in every teacher's classroom, where we focus on using data. Almost all of it turns into small group instruction for kids. So it makes sense that if we're doing such a good job with small groups in that setting, to transition and make sure that we're having that same kind of quality instruction with our small groups throughout the day. So in every situation that kids are in, we want them to participate in those small instructional groups as much as we can. And we built our goals, our building goals, and lots of our teachers' professional learning goals around improving how we use small groups. So some of our groups really took that and ran with it. We have some teachers that I'll introduce in a minute who we're going to kind of walk you through how they picked up those pieces, came up with their own really great versions of it, and then they're going to talk about some of the successes that we've seen this year. I feel like this is just a little low for it. Okay, so let me introduce the teachers. Eric Austin and Aaron Pauley are from our 5th grade team, and Teresa Knutson and Sarah Smith are representing our 3rd grade team tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Aaron Pauley, and I've been working with Eric Austin this year. Lindsay Shandelia came in and presented at the beginning of the year this idea that we would try combining our classrooms. And so we decided to give it a try, and it was something that Eric and I both had experience in the past. And so we did a little bit of planning up front, and it's been a really great experience so far. So we'll start with usually a read aloud for everybody, which is nice to have one person reading and then another person on a doc cam taking notes. The students can have some notes to kind of get their thinking down. We have good conversation afterwards. And then one of us will do either maybe a 5-10 minute lesson. And then at that point, then we break off and do small groups. And the small groups are really the highlight of the whole experience, where we get to, in the past, maybe if we're just by ourselves, we can maybe get to 2-3 tops to be realistic by the end of the lesson. When having multiple teachers, myself, Eric, Shannon Dussel, and other staff, we have potentially about 9 groups in one class period. So it triples the amount of groups that we're able to meet with, which is a great benefit. We're also heavily focused on formal assessment, so we can give something right away, pile through the data real quick, and be ready to go the next day and adjust our instruction immediately after just teaching. So some of our groups may look like having a reteaching. We can have some comprehension groups. Eric might be in the back doing a guided reading group. Maybe I'm just working on a group of something lesson related or something you need to catch up on, or enrichment for another group. So it really gives us a lot of flexibility to meet with everybody, and that is the real highlight of it. A lot of kids sometimes will feel like they don't get to meet with the teacher sometimes, because we as teachers sometimes feel like we can only meet with kids, that need the extra help, and we constantly seem to be getting into that kind of same routine of meeting with the same kind of crowd on a regular basis. And this really allowed us to meet with everybody, the kids that are on track but still want to meet with us too. And so we get to meet with them as well and kind of push and challenge them. And so it's just all around a great experience. We've got 2 students, Lexi and Carissa, that also came tonight to share their experience and what they like about it. So Lexi, you want to go first?
I really liked about it
There you go.
because I got to make a lot of new friends. And the friends that I made this year was the friends that I made from Mr. Austin's class from coming in, because we all sit next to each other in a class, and since it's only one classroom, we all sit right next to each other. And some of the friends that I made this year was the people that sat right next to me. and we made a really good connection with each other, and now they're my new friends in school. And then I also like about it because I get more help faster than I would with just one teacher in the classroom. Like Mr. Polly said, I get more time because I don't really have to stand in line longer than I would with only one teacher. So I get my work done faster. And yeah.
In our class, Mr. Paul and Mr. Austin get together, and it's really fun when they get together because they work very well together, and they make us feel comfortable. And we do something called a small reading group, so we can work with each other from our own level and talk about questions with them and do book club. And then we also do something called a book club, so it's a bigger book club, so we can, instead of working with only a couple people, we can work with a lot of people, and they're really fun working with each other.
And just to kind of piggyback off of what Carissa said, one of the groups that I met with was a guided reading group. And guided reading is a system that's primarily used with the lower elementary ages. It's a really effective learn to read strategy. What we did is using the data, we found a group of kids that were a little bit lower, not in the struggling range, but just a little bit lower in their fluency rate. And we were able to really increase their fluency rates by anywhere from, I think, 15 to 40 words per minute over the 6 to 8 weeks that we were meeting with this small group. So it was a really effective use of our time, and the kids that were in the group really boosted that fluency and also the comprehension that went along with it.
Hi, I'm Sarah Smith, and this is Teresa. She's a third grade teacher, and I'm a learning coach. So we looked at the class that was coming in as third graders, and we knew that there were some holes. These kids had been home more during COVID and had masks on when they were learning vowel sounds and combinations and blending and decoding. So we knew that there was a need for certain kids. And along with Christina Swanson, we designed professional development that would occur over the course of the year so that teachers could learn a little bit of what they needed for certain kids in their classroom. Then they would have the opportunity to go back to their classroom, try those things out with kids, and then come back for the next part. And we did it a few times over. We knew that the type of interaction that kids would need, the instructional strategies, one, that it would be multisensory and tactile for kids to move things from their short-term memory to their long-term memory as quickly as possible. We knew that we wanted it to be engaging and have game-like feels at certain points, and we knew that we wanted the kids to have multiple opportunities and experiences so that they could take what they were learning and put it into continuous reading.
With our district's big goals.
Can I ask you to go by the microphone for our
Of
streaming
course,
people?
thank you. With the district's big goals of learning sprints, using this information, I put it into these strategy groups and learning sprints and did basically what Eric talked about with the guided reading, but with the new PD learning. So it was kind of like putting it into doable tasks, learning this PD and putting in doable tasks, making that small group. I chose 5 students in particular who needed to work on the decoding strategy. Started out with what Sarah said, the kind of a game-like feel. You put these little tents out for the students and you work on short vowel sounds to start off with. And the students can grab it when they hear it when I say a word like They learn umbrella, but they also learn They also learn if I say a word that maybe is a nonsense word, which is really interesting about this, and they don't get that it's the you, they say, oh, you, and then they trace it, on the table. It quickly puts all of it together for them, and they transition into doing what we call a blending board. So you flip this up, and they start to see like all these sounds put together, like ch, chimp. But it might be even like this, sh, imp, shimp. So they start to see it's not a word, but you're putting the words together and blending. And then it transitions into multisyllabic. I wanted to say syllables so many times. Multisyllabic words. And they learn rules and strategies. So the next slide, you're going to see a student working through this strategy on how he breaks apart an unknown word. It's pretty amazing. I'll talk through it a little bit, but you'll see him talking out loud as he does it.
First, we find the vowels.
He says, I made a vowel bridge, and then he marks the letters in between, and he says that's a consonant. He knows the rule is to break it vowel, consonant, vowel. So he breaks that apart, and now he's identified the syllables. So he says, this one's open, and then watch this. He writes open, and he freezes. He realizes right away that that's incorrect. He knows it's incorrect because he sees a consonant, vowel, consonant, and he knows the consonants surrounding the vowel make it a closed syllable. And then you'll hear him sound it out after he corrects it. And he does it just like the blending board. He sounds it out and then puts it together.
Nice. Now that you identified it, how are you going to say this word? Bow.
We knew that this isn't something that all kids need to learn. Many kids can decode multisyllabic words and do not need this scaffold for learning their decoding. But we did know that we do have students in this classroom, 5 in particular, that needed the steps through in order to decode so that they're not making guesses at words like they were in their initial running records.
And it transfers into their reading. They're not sitting in their reading breaking apart all these words, but it transfers. They suddenly start seeing this over and over, and it's not always needing to decode every word.
So one thing that was particularly important to us was that kids could do this reading a book or in continuous text. They could take what they had learned and then apply it. So this is looking at their guided reading level growth. These 5 students, we expect third graders to make about 4 levels worth of progress over the course of the year. By the third quarter, 3 of the kids had met or exceeded their goal. And then we have 2 other kids with a quarter of the year left to continue, that we know will continue to grow and make that growth. We didn't just look at decoding. In context, we also looked at kids' ability to summarize, one of the standards for comprehension.
And what I was doing here is checking to see that not only are they decoding the text, but are they understanding it? So I look at the whole class here, so it's everyone, but I can separate them out by these scores and look at them too. But I started the year at 9% being able to summarize, and by unit 5, putting in that summary to advanced, we were getting 75% of them at the summary. So now I know that 75% of my class is getting that. When we put these 2 together and we look at decoding and we look at summarizing, so that's the decoding and the comprehension of reading, we can see the STAR scores and see kind of how the results come out for that.
So in September, we started out at 54%, and then by February, we had 75% of this class headed towards proficiency. We don't just look at proficiency, though, we look at growth over the course of a year. If you're starting out advanced, we still want you to make a year's worth of growth. So in October, we had 58% of kids meeting their growth goal, and then in February, we had 81% of the kids in this classroom making a year's worth of growth.
And what was reassuring for me is that the 81% is saying yes, they may have been below grade level, but that means that they're making their year's worth of growth with those strategies.
And in many cases beyond a year's worth of growth.
And what we talked about with this is that really what was great about this is knowing that making that class size or that group size smaller, focusing on data, just like 5th grade did, and zooming in on those particular needs of that student, we can see success. So continuing to do those small groups and continuing also the PD of saying I need some decoding and some steps on what to teach students that maybe would have had this in prior years that we don't always see in maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. But we're seeing those gaps now and we can fill them in.
Do you want me to talk about?
So looking ahead, we kind of wanted to kind of wrap up, part of what we're working on this year, but then also think to the future, because obviously we have some pockets of excellence going on. We want to expand that building wide just to make sure that everybody has access to that, all students. So looking ahead, some of the things that we're going to continuing to work towards, we're going to continue with that small instructional group focus. We just think that's kind of our biggest bang for our buck is that small group time. One of the things that's kind of come to light, and I think Teresa did a really good job of kind of segueing to that, is that we know small groups are effective, but I think sometimes we get a lot of data and we don't necessarily know what to do with that data. So I think just more professional development for our teachers on specific strategy groups. So when we get that data, this is what the data tells us, and this is our next step forward. So that's what our work is going to look like a little bit more towards the end of this year and into next year. And then we're seeing a lot of growth with our WIN structure right now, so just continuing that, but then also seeing if there's more kids that can access that. Right now we've kept it kind of small, but with the success in the formatting of it, we're just seeing that more students can definitely have access to those small groups during that WIN time also, and that just layers on to that RTI approach where they're getting that layers of support throughout the day. So that's kind of where we're at right now and where we're headed to. Do you guys have any questions for the group?
I probably have a couple questions. So within the process, how did you kind of like identify the students? And then the second question I have is, how quickly do the students pick up and learn how to do that decoding? Because that becomes part of their self-learning, right?
When we make the groups, we start with a lot of the STAR data to begin with at the very beginning of the year, but when you meet with students one-on-one and confer with them, you start to see those weaknesses. So it's a definite combination of many things. We also know their reading levels coming in based on the year before, so we know like some of those gaps immediately. So that's part of that. The working with the students, I have to say PD for me was new. So we broke it into groups, and Christina Swanson, so I know she's been here before, and Sarah led PD, and I have raved about it all year because every time I went, I learned for 45 minutes what to do with a class. I took it back, I did it. I said, Sarah, will you come in? So definitely coaching made a big difference. And I said, watch me do this one. What about this? And showing it. And the kids catch on so quickly because it's tactile. It's almost like, when we do things and we learn it because we did it, we tried it. It's like practicing is saying it, movement. It really made a difference. Also, there's little songs. And that's why he was saying, find the vowels, mark it with a V, see how it rhymes, then find the consonants, mark it with a C, then make the bridge, and he draws the line. And so I'm not a good singer, but it's adorable, and they catch on very, very quickly, and then you give them a new rule because they feel so confident in that rule, and then you try a new rule. And like a perfect example too, one of the words recently was lotus, and they said, like a group of 5, lotus, and I was like, oh, let's do the rule, and they broke it apart, and they're like, oh, lotus. So it just has them check it. And you can see even when he was doing it, he was checking it there. So it's pretty quick.
The singing of the song helps them to remember it or learn it, if you will. Okay.
And just even the touching it on the, I have a little one who's always like, he was mixing up the E and the A, and he was like, like making it every time, making the sounds on the table and tracing the E, and it just then clicks. It's amazing. Great coaches.
Anyone else have any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I just want to say that I really appreciate that our teachers, truly understand that not all kids learn the same way, and that you guys are always so open to stepping outside of the box and finding new ways to teach our kids and make them successful.
And thanks for coming to 3rd grade. I've seen you reading. All that helps too.
Thank you.
Just more people listening.
Yep.
Just a couple of comments. Thank you all for being here tonight. Great presentation. Especially you, Lexi and Carissa. You guys were the stars of the show. There's just a couple things I want to note because part of the approach to Spotlights on Learning this year has been to talk about, really to help the board really have your finger on the pulse of how we identify issues, how we put resources in place, how we implement strategies, and what the results are, just to kind of see how things happen and have an impact over the course of the year. So, you see all the pieces that go into succeeding in helping students read more effectively at Horizon. You have a structure with win time. You have professional development that's deployed by people with a high level of training with our interventionists and coaches. You have teachers embracing that professional development, utilizing data with targeted strategies with their students, monitoring that progress, and continuing to adapt and apply those strategies so students can be successful and move forward. I mean, that's all like gold standard practice. That is really outstanding kinds of things that is really exemplary for really everybody in the district to see this is how you do it, right? This is how a school approaches something. This is how a team approaches it together, and how teachers implement those things successfully with their students. And the other thing that I noted, I really like how Teresa, I think it was when you were talking about going from decoding to understanding. We see this actually in math quite a bit, right? Because you can teach kids to computate, like they can run an answer. They have no idea what it means, right? If you don't also assess mathematical understanding, right? They need to understand. That's why when we look at math, we do tactile things, right? We do things that are not abstract. In this case, yep, kids can read words. Do they understand it? Can they read a passage, and can they summarize it? So those things are really important. So I appreciated that example. So anyway, that was a lot of things for me to comment on, but I just really wanted to let you know I appreciate it and wanted to highlight why this is such a good example of practice. So thank you. I need to get some prizes.
Don't go walking away. Don't go walking away.
You guys go.
Yeah, it's just, even the kids, I think.
You need the students?
Thanks for coming out on a 70-degree evening.
Thank you, very good.
As we always say, you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. Thank you. Good stuff.
Okay, next on the agenda is the student rep report.
All right, so we have our April Student Board Report. Tonight we're going to be reporting on some amazing work that a club at the high school is doing, some happenings at Horizon, and then our usual athletics and activities and salutes. So starting with PHS Environmental Club. So the Environmental Club is a new club this year. I believe it was restarted this year in the fall. And there's two initiatives that they've taken this year which have been really great and really cool initiatives. So the first one that they did was a thrift store. So this was done in the winter, and it was taken to combat clothing wastage and pollution caused by clothing. So they had students bring in and donate old clothing or clothing they didn't want to wear anymore, and then converted that clothing and used it as part of a thrift store. So the money collected from this thrift store or this activity was given to environmental organizations to help with the cause as well. And then a project that they have ongoing right now is the tree planting project. So the group has a goal of offsetting the carbon emissions of the school through planting trees. This is happening right now through the 14th, and then the trees will be planted on in May, a month later. So currently they're selling tree saplings for both students, staff, and community members to plant on their own or for them to have planted by the Environmental Club. Next, we wanted to highlight some fun happenings at Horizon with BBOTs and the annual March Madness game. So BBOTs are something that have been reported at board meetings prior, and I believe we've reported on them as well. So there's a recent application of BBOTs with Mrs. Zahn's second grade class, in which they combined what they were learning with in geometry and math with programming and computer science skills with BBOTs. A cool thing about this project, a lot of projects in the school, you have older kids oftentimes doing something and then teaching it to younger kids, or involving the younger kids in some way. In this project, it was actually the second graders teaching the fifth graders how to use the BBOTs. So this was also a collaborative lesson done with Mrs. Booker's fifth grade class. And then there's the annual March Madness game, which happened this year, the teachers versus students game, with both the boys and the girls basketball state teams in attendance. It was won on a half-court shot by the teachers, and the Hook Jr., who we reported on before, also took initiative for this event and reported on it as well.
I believe it was Mrs. Kramer launched a half-court shot, which I believe our high school basketball players were pretty impressed by that. So.
Yeah, speaking of which, moving into our athletics and activities, boys basketball became the Division II state champions, and the girls basketball became the Division II state runners-up. Chess club placed third place in the Division II state tournament as well, and robotics had a St. Louis regional competition and the Wisconsin regional competition, where they won the Spirit Award and the Gracious Professionalism Award again. So they are really showing some amazing character. And then FCCLA had a state competition in the Dells, where they had 6 medalists. I believe it was 2 golds, 3 silvers, 1 bronze, and 2 national qualifiers, Lilo Goodmanson and Texas Mackey, for fashion design and sports nutrition. And then Science Olympia had their state competition at UWM. And then for shout-outs, we had Milan Momcilovic, who won Gatorade Player of the Year, Mr. Basketball, and AP Boys Basketball Player of the Year in the state of Wisconsin, completing the season sweep for awards in the state. Alex Moser making the robotics team list as a finalist, and then Mr. DeMars and ProStar for their state competition in Oshkosh.
I would just add to that, I don't know if you guys caught it over the weekend, but Coach Burkemper was the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Coach of the Year in the region as well. So another recognition. The basketball recognitions just keep on coming.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Musab or Dylan? Nice job again.
Great report, guys.
Thank you. All right. Salutes and recognitions. We have a big one tonight. Mike, are you?
Sure.
gonna
Well,
answer that?
I'll kind of get the ball rolling here, and I know, Brian, you have some comments to make, but Brian
About 45
Cammers.
minutes.
What's that?
About 45 minutes.
About 45 minutes, so get comfortable,
Can we get our
everybody.
cake first?
Might be a good idea.
But Brian has served this community and the school district with distinction for 27 years. I did some rough math, and that is almost 600 regular school board meetings, assuming there's about 22 a year. And then if you assume that you do more, you can just keep going with this, right? So if they roughly average 2 hours, that's 1,200 hours of just the regular board meetings on top of luncheons and expulsion hearings and strategic planning sessions and board learning sessions and all those kinds of things. And then, of course, there's the several hours the multiple hours that are done in preparation for meetings with board packets and all of those kinds of things. So thousands and thousands of hours that Brian has provided in service of this community. How far this district has come from the mid-1990s to today is amazing, and Brian's had a lot to do with that. So, it's with great appreciation that we recognize you tonight, Brian, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I created some remarks, and after 27 years, it's really kind of hard to know where to start. So I've said this multiple times. I always felt it's important to give back to your community in which you live. If everybody just gave 2 hours every month back to their community, what a wonderful world we would live in. As Mike pointed out, it was a lot more than 2 hours a month. Participation on the school board, though, was a natural fit for me. I've always had a passion and interest in education, and I'm proud of the fact that all my kids have master's degrees. So, when I started on this district, our district wasn't really highly thought of. We were considered a bit of a backwater district. Few, if anybody, moved to our district just for the schools. One of my goals was to have Pewaukee become an educational leader in Wisconsin. The comparison school I used all those years ago no longer applies, but I don't think there's any doubt that Pewaukee is now an educational leader. I'm proud of the important changes and accomplishments this district has had in the last 27 years. Maybe the most obvious are the differences in the district facilities. When I was just getting started or getting involved with the district, we had portable classrooms. Some people still remember that. And members of the Booster Club used to have to go into the old concession stand to chase out all the mice before they could clean up before a football game. So it definitely changes there. The construction of Pewaukee Lake Elementary was just finishing up when I was first elected to the board. And I want to recognize the support of this community and thank them for approving the construction and upgrades to Horizon Elementary, the multiple upgrades to all 4 schools, and in particular, the spectacular auditorium and fine arts facilities. They supported fitness and sports-related projects such as the fitness center, the soccer stadium, and for football, the new grandstands, stadium entrance, and field turf, and soon we're going to get a new varsity softball field. I'm also proud that Pewaukee has been recognized and awarded numerous times. We are seen as an educational leader, and we won the prestigious Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award for our continuous improvement processes. One of my hopes being on the school board was that we could create a work environment where I myself would like to work. An environment where employees felt supported in presenting new ideas to try out and where staff could work on their craft and profession. I'm proud that our employees have considered the Pewaukee School District to be a top workplace for 10 out of the last 11 years. During my years on the board, we tried to support new ideas brought forth that would further our mission. The people that brought forth these ideas were supported whether the ideas worked or not. I always joked that the things that we tried and did work would become presentation topics at the next state convention or national convention. The ideas that we tried that didn't work out, we would never speak of again. I will take with me a lot of wonderful memories. Handing out the diplomas was one of my favorite activities. It was extremely special for me and my family to hand diplomas to each one of my children. And I'm particularly proud that Pewaukee was an early adopter of a one-to-one computer initiative, getting computers in the hands of our students. Pewaukee High School was one of the first schools to institute a program to discourage drug use with our random drug testing for students in extracurricular activities. In the last 27 years, the changes in the district have been considerable. There are still a few of us around that remember what the Pewaukee School District was like in the mid-90s. And these are the people that can give you an idea of how far we have come. Some people have never known the Pewaukee School District to be anything but a leading and progressive educational organization. Two of the people that can give you the insight to this progress are currently on the board. Jeannie Wattoon was a teacher and retired here and now continues to contribute to this community and school district by being on the Board of Education. And sitting next to me, Larry Dukes, who has served with me for 20 of the 27 years that I've been on the board. Thank you to both of you for your dedication to the children of this community. In addition to Larry and Jeannie, there are only 14 full-time employees still working in the district since 1996 when I was elected to the board. I want to thank these people and for all the retirees over the years for spending their career at Pewaukee. And thank you, everyone, buildings and grounds, central office, food service, paraprofessionals, teaching staff, student services, special education, administrators, and all others who have either worked or retired from our district for contributing to the success of our students. These are the people who have worked or continue to work every day with every child to open the door to each of their futures. Last week on Wednesday, April 5th, I had been married for a total of 37 years. And I like to joke, and the whole time it was the same woman. Thank you, Susie, for all your support. I have been on the board 27 of those 37 years of our marriage. I think that's outstanding. Has Susie ever complained about the hours I spend on board service? I don't recall it. I'd also like to recognize the board members I have worked with over the years. One of the key successes for this district was having stable, long-serving leadership. Having that stability on the board and the superintendent's office is critical to accomplishing long-term goals. In addition to the 6 other members of this current board, I'd like to recognize and thank the 18 other individuals that I've had the pleasure to serve with. As an example of that stability I mentioned, the average tenure on the board has been just under 8 years. Unfortunately, not all the past members are still with us. These members include John Blask, Mary Birch, Steve Dankert, Chris Dursky, Frank and Rita Goodwin, Ron Frey, Daisha Hopkins, Jim Huseman, Chris Klein, Eric Krasovich, Jeff Lewis, Norm Peterson, Greg Serafin, Mary Beth Steffens, Betty Thill, Ann Wells, Annette Williams, and Ann Wright. And my sincerest apologies if I missed anybody. After 27 years, it's kind of hard to remember everything. Continuing along the lines of stable leadership and contributing to the success of this district, I want to thank and recognize Dr. Sternke, Dr. Joanne Sternke, Superintendent of the Year, who helped guide this district for 16 years. And to our future Superintendent of the Year, Dr. Mike Cady, the district leader for the last 6 years. We've been blessed with a number of outstanding academic officers and curriculum directors over the years, starting with Kay Hutchinson. I also want to recognize Mark Hansen, Dr. Cady, and now Dr. Danielle Busaman. Thanks go to them for their hard work and dedication to the children of this community, and always working to improve the academic outcomes for every student that walks through our doors every day. The district has also benefited from stability in our business office. Pewaukee has only had 2 assistant superintendent chief financial officers in my time on the board. Long-range fiscal planning is critical in a school district, and Pewaukee has had 2 of the best business officers the state of Wisconsin has ever seen. The first was Mike Berry, who is now the executive director of the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials, and the second being our current CFO and recent School Business Manager of the Year, John Gann. Their leadership has kept this district financially sound and operating in a sustainable manner. And thank you to all the building leaders, past and present, for their contributions to achieving the goals in our strategic plans and being the educational leaders for our children. And finally, I have 3 more people I'd like to recognize and thank. One is Mark Olson, the district attorney for all my time on the board. He's been a wonderful, trusted partner for our district and a great contributor and team member. The other is Bob Butler, an attorney with the Wisconsin Association of School Boards for 33 years. And over the years, Bob has supported this district in employee group negotiations, legal reviews of policies, and legal advice. And last, I'm sure you're glad to hear that, thank you to Julie Toole. One time, Julie used to drive all over town to hand deliver hard copies of the board package to each board member's home. You remember that, right? Her official title is Executive Assistant to the Superintendent. It'd be more appropriate to say Julie is the person that keeps the district running smoothly. She provides fabulous support for Dr. Cady and all board members. She organizes meetings, hearings, learning sessions, board and administrative travel, and manages the whole open enrollment process. And to finish, I just want to say it's been my honor and privilege to serve the Pewaukee School District in this community. I actually look forward to seeing what new innovations and higher levels of academic achievement that occur here from Pewaukee. and seeing how Pewaukee will continue to prepare graduates by opening the door to the future for every child, every day. Thank you.
Well, Brian, speaking of Julie, who did a really great job preparing some things for you, we have a couple of gifts that I'm sure you'll appreciate. One in particular that has all kinds of history for you to spend your time perusing. As Julie was digging through the archives and putting things together. So there'll be some trips down memory lane.
Oh my goodness.
Through that, and here is a gift from the district for you in gratitude for your service.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Brian. Nothing but respect for everything that you've done in your time here.
Thank you. Time for cake.
And we do have cake, and everybody here just stuck around, you can have cake. Imagine that, look at that. So I asked Larry, and Larry was the next most senior member of the board. I said, cake after the meeting or cake during the meeting, and Larry said cake during the meeting, so.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, so that's Larry's call.
Oh my goodness.
So if anybody would like to help themselves.
Oh,
to a
okay.
piece of cake, I think you should leave the charge, Brian, and then we can kind of continue.
Everyone gets a piece of cake tonight.
A calendar for 1996. Where did you dig some of this stuff up?
Oh, yeah, you'll probably be surprised.
Holy crap, that is old.
And those are interesting because that calendar, you can see the notes for planning the calendar that are in there and the name changes.
And now we have to continue.
And we do have a meeting.
Is that next?
Well, I will say, you mentioned Mark Olson. I just thought it might be a funny memory to share. Mark Olson always reminds us, and Susie, you'll remember this, of Brian's first meeting. I believe it was your very first meeting of the board, and there was an issue that went basically to like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. 5 in the morning. This was before cell phones.
Yeah.
And you're at home and you have no idea where your husband is because he's been gone.
I thought he was in an accident because it was a terrible winter night.
Yeah.
And so I started calling Boardman, I forget who I called.
Well, you called every tavern in town first.
But it was like, they weren't allowed to have their phones, so you
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have phones.
We didn't have phones.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably true too.
Yeah. Unless you had one of those bag phones in your car. Maybe.
It was not a fun night, I have to say.
Yeah, I was certainly hoping that they weren't all gonna be like that.
Yes. That
That was
definitely
your
upped your
very
average.
first meeting?
My very first meeting,
Wow.
got sworn in, sat down, it was a disciplinary hearing, and,
Till 5 in the morning.
5 in the morning. And then I tried to go to work, and about 3:30, they could hear the keyboard clicking with my face on it.
All right. Do we have any other salutes and recognitions that we want to bring up this week? That's a hard act to follow. All right, we have a couple citizens here. Do we have any comment cards, Julie? Comments from citizens? I'm moving on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes from our previous meetings, the March 13th board meeting, Business Affairs Committee meeting, the correspondence we had, and we had a couple gifts. And then the policies that we went over at our last meeting. Are there any questions or comments, or do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion to accept the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. I'm going to throw it back to you, Brian, for our Business Affairs Committee summary.
Business Affairs met earlier today where we went through the check register and answered any questions, or questions from the committee. Are there any questions from the larger group, with regard to the check register? We also went through the financial report, and things are tracking well. We didn't have any issues there. If there's any questions, entertain them now. And finally, we talked about the budget and staffing presentation. You know, I probably should have jumped in there for salutes and recognitions. Thank you to Dr. Katie and John Gann for going to present at the budget hearing on the needs for not only our district, but all the districts in the state. And we talked about the implications of different decisions that could occur at the state level and their impact that it would have on our budget. But then he did pre-sell it by letting us know we might have a very strong year next year in terms of state financing. Other than that, I recommend approval of the Business Affairs Report.
Second. All in favor of approving the Business Affairs Report as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Brian. Moving on to old business. John, you're going to talk to us about the self-funded health insurance plan?
So at our previous meeting, we talked about a proposal of transitioning the district from a fully insured insurance plan to a self-funded plan. And you had the materials that were delivered at that meeting along with a presentation from M3 Insurance from Jeff Ireland, our broker, about the composition of that plan and what that would look like and the mechanics of how it would work. We wanted to give you some time in between the last meeting and this current meeting to take a look at that. And if you had any questions, I believe it was pretty clear with everybody. I didn't receive any follow-up questions that came from there. So at this meeting, we asked for your approval to move forward with this. There's two actions that come out of it. First would be to move forward with the planning for the self-funding of the contracting for making that happen effective July 1st, 2023. And then secondly is the motion to remove ourselves from participation in the WCASC, the Waukesha County Area Schools Cooperative.
Before I ask for the motions, I just want to commend you for your creativity and the work that you put into organizing this in a way that still gives our employees a quality benefit, but is more cost-effective for us. So thank you for all your work with that.
I have a question regarding the co-op. I mean, 3 of the big players are going to move out of it. Is it just going to collapse now and just wait? And it doesn't affect our decision, but.
There's alternatives that the other districts have been presented with, and we have a meeting coming up on April 19th, I believe, where it's the annual meeting for the cooperative. We'll be looking at the membership at that point.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. All right, we have a motion to approve the plan to transition the Pewaukee School District to a self-funded health insurance plan as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we need a second motion about removing ourselves from the co-op.
I move to remove ourselves from the current healthcare co-op.
Second?
Second. All right, all in favor of removing ourselves from the Waukesha County Area Schools Cooperative, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Right back at you, John.
Okay,
So we're gonna talk
the
about-
second item that we have on the agenda is under new business tonight, and it's an extension of the commercial lease that we have. It's been 7 years already that we've been involved with the Insight location over on Paul Road, with Paul Road Properties in the CISA building, and running that program, giving the opportunity to our students. And when we initially formed this program, Dr. Bosonic was the driving force behind that, and needing to have that authentic environment and that business-like environment that those students could learn in to create that opportunity and to make that successful. We are approaching the end of the extension of the lease that was acted on. So this motion here would then add another 3 years, extend that lease for another 3 years through the 25-26 school year.
All right, do we have any questions or comments?
I got a question about the facility itself. You know, we keep adding classes. Is it going to meet our future needs for the space, or will we start getting a little crowded there?
No, we're still doing okay. It has, kind of 2 primary meeting spaces in it, so we do have some flexibility there. And depending on the nature of the course, some of those courses still meet here, some meet over there, right? The business courses meet there, so it's still meeting our needs as is. We probably need to do some, touch-up paint jobs and things of that nature, but as far as the size, it still works.
So for the next 3 years, you think you're good?
Yeah, yep.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the table to approve an extension of the existing lease between our district and the Paul Road Properties to continue through 2026. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to personnel issues. You had some papers in front of you for some later entries.
Yep, we had a couple of items. So we do have a resignation for you to act on this evening. Christina Burmeister, special education teacher, Horizon Elementary. So I would seek your approval of the resignation of Christina Burmeister.
Moved.
Second?
All in favor of approving the resignation of Christina Burmeister, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes.
And then we have an employment, Megan McFadden, who for a period of time had attended school here. Megan has been the selection of the hiring team at Horizon for full-time guidance counselor there. Megan's currently interning at Ace Clark under the expert guidance of Adriana Plock right now, and is doing great in that role. So take any questions you have, but otherwise I'd seek your approval of the hiring of Megan McFadden, guidance counselor at Horizon.
This one was fun for me. She went to school with my son, but it also made me feel old. It's fine. It's totally fine. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving our hire of Megan McFadden, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Wonderful.
And no leaves.
All right, no leaves. Okay, so, board goals and operations. We're coming to the end, guys. Okay, so, tomorrow, Jeannie, Ashley, and I will be helping out with the student board representative interviews, finding a new partner for Dylan, saying goodbye to Musab. And we do have an expulsion hearing on the calendar, but we're hoping.
We have an expulsion scheduled for Wednesday. I do not think we're gonna need to run that, but I'll confirm with you when we cancel it, which I think is highly likely.
Okay, and then next Monday, we are having the Facility Long Range Community Forum in the auditorium in the Learning Commons. And then we have that Thursday, so next Thursday, the new board member gathering, hosted by the WASB. And it looks like a bunch of us are gonna be able to come, so we'll be able to
that held
welcome.
here?
Yep, that's in the.
Yep, up here in the
Commons.
Learning Commons. I can't talk tonight. Okay, then we have our next board meeting on April 24th, starting with a policy committee at 6. And then April 26th, we have our honors banquet at Silver Spring Country Club. So we are gonna get to see a lot of each other. And then we go on into May, our next meeting, and then we have our community strategic planning session. Anybody have any other questions?
Who swears in the new board members since Larry is the new one?
Our SRO.
Julie Budenhagen is a
Oh,
notary.
that's right, you did say that.
So she'll do the
I forgot.
swearing in.
I forgot about that, yeah.
I will not be around next week. I have a meeting in Chicago, so.
We will miss you at all those things.
I know.
All right.
You're gonna go there to find your voice?
Okay.
Stacy, do we know how many people have been invited for the strategic planning event?
Well, we have, remember, Julie shared the spreadsheet with us. So that's who all got emails. And then I'm hoping that we can all kind of divvy up that list and make some personal contacts if there's people on the list that you know, and invite them, and or add people if there's people that you think would be a good contribution, that we could do that.
And we've used that same list for the,
Facilities?
for the facility planning. By my count today, I looked at it, Julie, I had 24 people that had signed up to come for, and because we resent that out, we re-emailed everybody in the list, we did a little social media post. The constant contact contact kind of newsletter that comes out from the district every week, it was in there for a second time. So we'll again use that list to put out a specific message regarding the strategic planning. We had really strong turnout last year, so I would hope to see similar if you have people you'd like added to the list. Of course, everybody in the community is welcome to be a part of that. We encourage that. So feel free to reach out. Feel free to let us know if you want us to add people to the list or contact people specifically so that we can have really good representation.
Have we done the facility type meeting before?
We have, but it's usually, I think the last one was in 2016. So this is the first time in a while we've had a facility long-range plan event like this. So we're going to kind of keep reaching out to some different folks to see if we can get that number up a little bit. But the intention that evening, I'm kind of jumping the gun here because I think it's down at D. So I'll wait. I'll talk
Okay.
more about that evening when you
All
actually
right.
get to me on the agenda.
Sounds good. So there were a few of us that attended the National School Board Conference last week, and now is our time to kind of debrief and share some highlights. It was a little bit amusing because my first couple breakout sessions were just not the right choices, and I said, I think I'm throwing up my hands. I'm like, you guys pick them. Like, you pick them and you tell me where to go. I went to one that was a sales pitch, and I really thought I was good at realizing which ones were like that, and I missed it. And I was sitting in the front row, and I couldn't leave. So, Bren, were you able to get some good sessions virtually?
You know, I wasn't sure attending virtually, you know, how meaningful it would be. The lives, general sessions were really great. And actually, the one that impressed me the most was the general session on Monday, where that gentleman talked about AI. It was so interesting to see how new AI is, but actually it started way back in 2010. It didn't just start a couple years ago. This has been going on for a while. But the thing that he really impressed on me was a couple of things. You know, he talked about, you know, should AI be used, not be used by students, and what would the effect be? And he said, you know, will kids cheat using it? Sure, they'll try, but we have to set up policies to keep kids from wanting to do that. And he said, people ask, well, will it make our kids stupid? And he said, well, yes, in some ways we will lose something, but in other ways we'll gain. But I think that the most important thing that I learned from that was we as board members, I think it is upon us to take the time to really just go out there and research AI and understand it better. So that as it's something that comes on our plate, that we can genuinely say we understand it and can make good decisions around it.
Yeah, I thought, because he was the guy that invented Siri, that is on all of our iPhones now, and
Now she's gonna wake up and
now
ask
she's
us
gonna
all
wake
what we
up.
want.
I don't see the little bubble on
Yeah.
my phone, so. And it is such a rapidly growing thing. We actually, Danielle's done quite a bit of work on this already. It's a major topic of our superintendent pack on Friday. Danielle's going to be helping present there as well. So, and one thing that was interesting, it was a strong statement that he made, was that AI is going to be a much bigger deal than the internet. Like and if you think of how the internet has affected everything, right? That he feels that it's going to be more impactful even than the internet has been. But it's about, what I appreciated about him was positivity and optimism, because if you start reading, you can get a lot of apocalyptic kinds of things real quickly when you read about AI, but he had a much more optimistic outlook about it. So
I would be happy to meet with any board member that would be interested in learning more about AI and education. I've gone down this rabbit hole pretty deeply and am working with the folks at AI EDU, and I'll be in San Diego next week at the AI GSV Summit, which is the leaders from Silicon Valley. Will be there. Bill Gates is one of the keynotes, learning about AI and education and really kind of learning from each other. So they've invited a small handful of educators from each state, and I was lucky enough to get an invite. And so I definitely would welcome any conversations the board would like to have on that, and more information that I can share, and how it's impacting and what we're learning from it. And some of the PD we've already done with our staff as well. I'd be happy to year.
Just maybe one comment to tie into it. I think some of you know, I'm on the CISA board as well. So the CISA is very, very, very interested and potentially involved in this as well. Just like they've been doing things for years on the personalized learning. They want to be there, and I think they're part of the
Yeah,
invited group
yep,
as well.
yep.
So, it's a nice connection or collaborative opportunity.
Yeah, it'll be, next week, it's myself, two folks from New Berlin, and, two folks from CISA will be there, as well as I think Deb Kerr maybe is going as well from the state of Wisconsin, so.
Okay. Jeannie, do you have anything you want to share from the?
One of the
convention?
ones that I went to that I was looking to see if we had done everything right was introducing mental health issues into the school and the private carriers that we have coming in. Well, the other board members that presented talked about all the struggles they had getting it in their schools. And he went, we didn't have any struggles. We all agreed on it. The parents were thrilled with it. Pewaukee did it right.
Yeah, Jeannie and I were talking a little bit about that. When we go to these conferences, it's kind of funny because sometimes you sit there, oftentimes, we sit there and we think, wow, we really have our act together. Like we seem, the stories that we hear are a little sad and scary sometimes, so.
Yeah, I would, a couple things to add. One, I saw a session that was really about student voice, kind of like we have our two wonderful board reps. Student board reps, this district had a teen superintendent role that, and she was impressive. At first I thought she was like a district office staff member up there, and just that, oh my gosh, she's a young looking assistant superintendent. Oh, well, she's
So,
18.
Guys, she was at the conference, just
Yeah,
saying.
she was at the
She got to
conference,
fly to
so.
the conference.
Musab, I think that ship has sailed, but Dylan.
Sorry, buddy.
Because it is in New Orleans. This conference is in New Orleans next year. There, Dylan. So, but she was very impressive, and it was just interesting to hear the different ways in which those students play a role. So I got a lot of good information from there. Adriana and I attended one about continuous improvement practices. I thought I picked up a couple of things that might be some value add in terms of our plans and approaches, and some books that they referenced. I had Julie order me already from there to read that looked really good. And I just, we'd be remiss not to talk about our presentation Monday morning at 8 a.m. So the last day of a conference in Florida. I had low expectations, and we had over 50 people attend that session, which is pretty darn good. I was thinking, boy, are we gonna hit 10, maybe 12? And it was very, very well received. So everybody that was involved with that presentation did a nice job, and people were very positive. And one board member came up to us and said, "This made the whole trip here worth it, just coming to our session. This was exactly what she was hoping to see about those post-secondary options. And then here we talk about it, and you guys are doing it, and so some really strong compliments. So that was a good note to finish up on.
Do we have groupies there?
I don't know if we had any past.
See as many groupies as we sometimes see, so, yeah. But we might have gained some new ones.
It is a different situation because NSBA, its membership is down. And now actually Wisconsin Association of School Boards just announced that they've joined the new organization, COSBA. I'm not quite sure if it's an I need Teresa back here on my decoding if that's COSBA or COSBA, but
And they were holding a conference
in Tampa
at the same time.
They have now 24 states that have signed up. So, and WASB just joined. So, and we looked at kind of their agenda of their conference and talked.
One superintendent.
Yeah, who was there. So that's something for us to think about moving forward. Is that from this group, we'll get you more information on that organization, and because typically we submit presentations. Is it NSBA? Is it COSBA? Who are we going to be more engaged with, considering WASB is now went with this new organization?
The two that resonated with me were, one was educator engagement and retention, the critical role of the Board of Education. And basically it was a former teacher administrator who has worked with a group and developed a very well-received teacher survey. I don't know that we have issues with our current teacher survey, but just something to think about. We could look into this one. They had a really high response rate. They've been really trying to formulate a database and get more people to use it so they can have more information. But it was a really interesting talk. And then the other one, which was after our 8 o'clock session, so I was a little brain dead by that point, but it was student success. It's as easy as TLC, and of course I thought TLC was what I knew it to be. It's not. It's tenacity, loyalty, commitment. And this gentleman developed this in his school as an administrator, and basically it's a behavior resolution process. What was very interesting to me was he is basically could be a comedian. Like, it was a really lighthearted, like fun, interactive talk that delivered a message about how he turned behavior incidences around in his school using this concept and training his teachers to use it. He was very engaging. He used humor. His sister was a teacher in his building, and she had a very challenging student encounter, and she came to his office and basically said, "I am done." And he looked at her and he said, "Okay." And he turned to the student and he says, "You are excused." And the student said, "Oh, I'm off?" And he said, "Oh, no, I will deal with you later, but first I have to deal with this." And he said to his sister, "I can't have you communicating that in front of a student. Like, yes, I understand you're frustrated and you're tired or whatever." And so he had this talk with her, and they talked through it. Within an hour of her leaving his office, his mother called him. His sister had called his mother. So there was just, like I said, there was a lot of humor, but I think it's a very relevant topic. And if it would be something we could be interested in, I think it would be it could be enjoyable as well for the staff to hear and go through something like that, because there was a lot of laughter in the room. All right, so those were my two that I liked.
I just appreciate everybody taking the time and going. Good to learn together.
Mm-hmm. All right, legislative advocacy discussion.
Some things happening. Brian mentioned that John and I went to the Waukesha Expo last week on Wednesday, and we had our 2 minutes. John and I tag teamed it. Of course, he let the superintendent go first. But I thought I was pretty good. I felt like I kept it.
So you took 1:58?
I feel like I was about 45 seconds and I handed it off.
I felt like I was about 10 seconds in and the 30-second sign came up.
And so they were pretty tight on the time, but I tried to go as quickly as I can. But, he just said, well, superintendents, so with a microphone. But at any rate, I thought that was, it was good to be there. There was a good representation advocating for education. I think we have to acknowledge it's difficult. Those legislators, they sit up there and everybody that comes to the microphone wants money, right? So, and they're hearing from all different kinds of groups, but it was an interesting process that happened there, but it was good to have that voice and to hear that message from multiple school systems. We have a meeting with Senator Kappenga this week, and we have a meeting with Representative Nalen next week. So looking forward to the opportunity just to speak with them a little bit about issues that are important to us as a school system. And so looking forward to that.
How many schools went to the Expo Center to present?
I think there were 23 total, most of them from CISA 1 from our region right here. There's 3 more sessions coming up.
Yeah, there's more that'll be around the state. Although I was surprised at some that came, like we had Howard Swamico came all the way down. I thought Hayward maybe came all the way down too.
The Forest.
Yeah, so there were some that traveled. I think some want to hit like multiple stops. So.
Okay. Now is your time to talk about our facility strategic planning.
Yeah, so just a quick update on that. So as I mentioned, we've put out the communication twice now to recruit people to those sessions. If the numbers kind of stay in the ballpark or where they are, we probably won't use the auditorium. We'll probably just use this space. because the space is better for, get people in groups and presenting in a smaller environment than the auditorium. If we get a bunch of people signing up, it gets a little bit larger, we can always shift it to there. Part of the plan for the evening, I'm hoping to do like a mini tour at least of looking at some of our older spaces in this building, the shop area in particular, and maybe some of the art rooms. As those are spaces that we have some interest in potentially addressing so that they can be updated. But looking forward to that opportunity to sit down with members of the community and staff and talk about future facility needs and how it might benefit us. We'll look at things that we are going to need to be done. So everything from projected projects with roofs and air handling units and those things to just areas in the district that could benefit from some improvements, but again, in hearing from our community and what do they want to see. So it'll be good to get together and have those discussions next week.
All right. We normally have another comments from citizens. Are we just not?
It's there, I think.
Oh, is it there? Did I miss it?
It's on here. Yep.
Or it's just on the board docs.
It's on the board
Oh,
docs.
it's not,
not
I'm
printed.
looking at the hard copy. Sorry. Do we have any comments from citizens? All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone.